Yeah, yes. Uh, Hopefully it's not too bad in North Carolina. I lived there for a good little while, and it tends to be a little warmer, but not much, just a tad bit. So we'll find out what the weather's like in North Carolina right now. Um, Yarvitz is from uh, like I said, the 10th district, which is uh, Catawba, Catawba County, Airedale County, Lincoln, Yadkin, and a little bit of Forsyth counties. That is what the 10th district, congressional district is. Um, so, yeah, he's, I want to say this is more like right above the Charlotte area, if I'm not mistaken. So about like mid North Carolina. Let me double check that. North Carolina 10th district. Oh, they more west, really west. Okay, yeah. They're more. It is Charlotte, but it's not above Charlotte. It's more to the left of Charlotte area. Um, According to this, okay, this was 9 years ago, so I think they have changed a little bit. Okay, that's 7 years ago. I think they had gotten redistricted. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is 2 years ago. They got redistricted. So, we used to have some of Asheville, but not anymore. Now we are above Charlotte, the Charlotte area. Okay. Welcome in, everybody. How y'all doing tonight? Let me get some emojis in that chat. Tell me, with emoji, tell me what your weather's like. In the chat. Tell me what your weather is like with an emoji. Because, yeah, like I said, over here in the DMV, we cold. See my background? That's what we looking like. Are you cold, Jazz? Thickums, go sit down. 65 degrees is not cold. Okay? Not as sunshiny, Miss Trish. What? Give me some emojis in that chat. Some real emojis. I don't want to hear. I mean, some people think 65 degrees is cold when they constantly live in 85 degrees. But we know that is not cold. That feels great. I can't get a clear-cut map. I'm going to ask. Mir's going to have to tell me exactly how this is set up right now. Let's see. Is 69 here? Okay, 69 degrees. That's blissful. So I'll take that right now instead of the 21 we got here. Mir, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm okay, but I've never done a TikTok live, and so I've spent a long time trying to set up the background, and then
Well, you
don't know if
actually
it's
can only set
working.
it up while you're on the camera.
Okay.
So just go ahead and click your little camera at the bottom. And when you do that, once you click the camera, it's going to give you the options for the green screens.
Okay, hold on a second.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to scroll over and then hit the.
Okay, so let's see. At the bottom, I scroll.
Till you see the arrow.
Now it's asking me if I want to go. I don't think I'm in the right area.
So when you clicked on your camera, there should have been like a bar. Let me see.
Sorry. Wait, go back. I click on the camera. Describe
Right.
that again.
At the bottom of your screen, there should be a camera.
There's a
Like
camera with
a little icon for a camera, right? And then it says effects at the bottom. You will scroll all the effects all the way to the scroll left. And then once you get to the end of that, you should see a arrow.
I mean, I see. I see a person with ears. Okay, don't do the cat ears. Okay, got it.
No, just keep scrolling over till you get to the arrow. When you hit the arrow, you're then going to see some words at the top. You should see where it says green, and that's going to be the green screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
You're going to hit your first green screen, the one with the arrow pointing down.
Okay.
Okay. And then once you hit that, it's going to ask you if you want to pick a picture. So hopefully you save that background. You click that background and hit save.
Okay.
There you look at you got it, bro. You got it. Perfect.
All right. I'm 46 years old, so this is a really big deal.
All right. All right. Well, welcome.
Am I the right size?
Huh?
Am I the right size? Am I in the right? I don't know.
You're good. You're good to go. You're good to go.
The beautiful image that you all made here.
Yes. And this is mine where I put the people with the snow on their heads because this is what it's looking like here in the DMV.
Oh yeah.
People walking around with snow on their head. So let's go right into this. I'm excited. I got a little bit of background information on you. Mir, correct? Yarfitz.
That's right. That's right. You got it.
All right. You have been organizing since you were 17 years old. You have lived in Winston-Salem since 2013.
That's right.
Where you have helped implement anti-discrimination protections and volunteered in every election cycle. Also helped tenants organize for some things. You are a queer trans man who transitioned over 20 years ago and is out and proud to defend yourself and the lives of your friends. You have stood up to bullies your entire life and are not afraid of what others may throw at communities you represent. You make it a regular practice when you see others suffering under bullies to encourage them to stand with the larger group and say, no, enough is enough. Claps for that, sir. Claps for that. So thank you for your fight. Thank you for your communities, your union. We are here. I know our vote counts. Supports the LGBTQIA plus community, your fight has just begun. Unfortunately, we still got to convince some people that you're worth it too. Right?
Well, I mean, we got to all be in this fight together. I mean, I'll talk about how I got into this campaign, but it's about standing side by side with my immigrant neighbors. And, I mean, they're here coming for all of us. So we got to figure out how to do this together. Even if we have some little disagreements, it's time to get over those.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Well, so you said you're going to tell us a little bit. You said you got into deciding to run, but you've been organizing since you were 17. So it was already in you. But you decided this was the
Mm-hmm.
time when you saw how much so many communities were people were getting attacked. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, well, how long do you want this story to be? Because I can make it long or short.
I mean, give me about 2 minutes.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I've been organizing with various communities since I was a teenager, and but I'm a college professor. That's my day job. And what happened though when ICE came up into North Carolina in November, right? And they came to Charlotte, and so I immediately went down. I've been already organizing with folks around those issues, and we kind of knew a little bit of what was coming. But when I went down and saw what was happening in the Latino neighborhoods in Charlotte, people were not leaving the house, not going to school. When on those really bad days when they had rolled in with full force with Bovino, folks they had to go out to work. If they had their businesses open, they were there trying to like guard the door themselves, right? Just themselves. And it was, I mean, my family's Jewish. We've been Jewish, forever. And I'm like, why have we learned about all this stuff about the Holocaust and fascism if it's not to recognize that's what this is? This is state-sponsored terrorism. That's what this is, right? And so I saw that, and went around and got to know people a little bit, and we were just trying to kind of be there as allies to observe what was going on, and our very presence as allies did help in some ways interrupt what was going on to some degree, right? And so being part of that community organizing work, as always, helped with the despair, right? Helped with the despair, and people in those communities were so happy to see that maybe somebody else might stand at the door, so they didn't have to be the one to get the first hit when I showed up, right? So that organizing, is rooted in local communities that have been doing that work for a long time, and new groups are showing up and folks are working together. They continue to do that in Charlotte, in Raleigh, around the state of North Carolina, and around the country, right? And these groups are learning from each other, are inspiring each other, and are constantly evolving new tactics, right? Just as this very well-funded federal violent machine also evolves its tactics, right? Organizers are developing their tactics. And of course, we're all looking now to Minneapolis at what is happening there, and trying to think about how can we learn from that, and hopefully how can we stop that from happening all across the country, right? So, but the way I got into this campaign is, they started spreading out across the state. This is disgusting. They called it Operation Charlotte's Web after the children's story, because they were going to spread out like a web from Charlotte all around North Carolina. And so I just started, working with folks who do different kinds of community organizing work in the immigrant communities here in Winston-Salem, where I live. And we started, protesting. We started talking with local businesses about, what they could do to get ready, doing Know Your Rights trainings, bringing together allies and, folks in immigrant communities who are feeling really vulnerable. And as part of this, we actually ended up just finding that we had started an organization, and we called it Fuerza Triad Strong, to, sort of referring to we have like a 3-city area, the Triad, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point, in the sort of an area there.
That's the fake
And
triad.
there wasn't,
That's the fake triad. The real triad is Raleigh.
well, there's the triangle.
Durham.
There's the triangle. There's two. There's the triangle, which is better known, which is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, and then we are the lesser known,
Triad.
equally good.
I agree.
In Central North Carolina.
I agree. I actually lived in Raleigh for about
we-
5 years, and then in Greensboro for a year. So I love all
Okay,
parts.
you know.
Yeah.
So, okay, so just to wrap up the story of how I got into this political campaign. So we're doing these events. We're out every day. We're out, 10, 16 hours a day, because we're working with people who are afraid to go to work, to go to school, trying to figure out how can we make this safe. Some people are trying to, be around the schools, be around churches, right? Just like people are doing everywhere, and trying to spot them and sort of be visible and be filming them before they can snatch people off the streets, right? So what we started noticing, though, was that a bunch of political candidates, right, both incumbents and new candidates, kept showing up at our protests. And it was kind of nice, but it was kind of weird, because some of them were like, oh, hey, what's going on? Here's my business card. Who's in charge? And then would try to find out who's in charge, shake our hands, give everyone their business card, and then leave, right? And so we were confused. We were honestly confused, But then we were like, okay, well, it's primary time. I guess people want to take pictures with immigrants and allies, but we were like, well, let's try to get them to do something, right? Some of them are in power right now. Some of them are trying to be in power. So we created a petition, right, very quickly with a bunch of demands. We immediately got 400 signatures, both immigrants and allies, and we had some very concrete demands. And so we started talking to these politicians and the sheriffs, and we were like, hey, here's some things we need to do right now. For example, here in Winston-Salem, let's not use unmarked vehicles right now to do the drug busts and the gang busts. I mean, ideally stop doing the drug and the gang busts at all, but okay, you're going to do your job. So just don't look like ICE, right? How about don't work with ICE if they don't have a warrant? How about, right? And the thing is, nobody we talked to would do it. In the sheriff, I talked to the sheriff directly, and he said, the feds have a bigger badge than I do. And I was like, come on, they are masked. They don't have ID. They're not feds. They're not feds. They're thugs. They're criminals. What do you do with criminals, right? No, he was like, no, but if they're the feds, then they have a bigger badge. And I was like, come on, how much money do you get from the feds? But anyway, he wouldn't do it. Other people we talked to wouldn't actually commit to doing anything, meaning stand up to the federal government, which is, people maybe don't know how to do it, but nobody was willing to do that. And several people said to us, because a bunch of us had very powerful stories and a lot of passion, and we're out there, and people were like, why don't you run?
Right.
And so this is where the story, this is how I get here. But first, before I decide to run, there are a number of really incredible Latina activists and organizers and we had no time, Melanie. We had 2 weeks. We had less than 2 weeks before the filing deadline, and no one had thought about this before, right? So people were like, okay, maybe you should run. Tell your story. Be a part of this. Run for the school board. Our school board's in a shambles. Run for city, it wasn't city council. Run for county council. And a bunch of folks were like, maybe we will, but we have no time. And so honestly, what happens is the Democratic Party establishment starts talking to people, but what do? They discourage them. They discourage them. The Democratic Party doesn't want new voices, new visions. Not really. Not really. Right? Not like that. Not off the street corner. They want to be able to shape and mold and control the narrative. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They don't want community organizers just off the street corner. They don't want that, right? So in any case, a bunch of us, we're talking about it. We're like, okay, well, we know a bunch of people who do comps, who do social media. We can fundraise. Like, we'll support each other. We'll do this together, right? But even with that, a bunch of the people got pushed out, got freaked out, got pushed out, very understandably. But we're continuing to all work together. And so those people are getting training. When we do canvassing, they're doing it, so they'll be ready next year.
Yeah.
But I did end up together with a woman who did hold on to it. And actually, she was registered Republican because she'd registered, she took some test in middle school that was like, oh, you're religious, you must be Republican, registered Republican. Like most people, I don't think votes in primaries, so it doesn't matter, right? If she wasn't MAGA, she wasn't voting for Trump, but she couldn't undo that Republican registration. So no one pushed her out. So I was kind of like, okay, well, and so as part of all this, I'll just wrap up the story with this. I met a couple people who were running for this District 10. And District 10 is a brand new gerrymandered district.
I was
we
going to
have a lot
ask
of
you,
gerrymandering
it was
across the state of North
moved. It was
Carolina.
moved around.
And they re-gerrymandered it 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a little bit less gerrymandered than it used to be, but it's still like an R9 gerrymandered district. And the guy they put in there, this guy Pat Harrigan, he's just a MAGA shill. You can see him, with Trump. He literally named one of his kids after Ronald Reagan. His family owns gun shops. A caricature. And he actually got two of my colleagues at the university where I teach who don't have tenure fired after Charlie Kirk's death. He got them fired. He sent the libs of TikTok after them for tweets. So I knew this guy, and I was like, oh, I hate this guy. But then I met a few people who were going to run against him, and I was like, oh, no, this is not going to work at all. This isn't going to work. So we're going through all this. I had thought a few years ago about running for city council, and I had done a bunch of training. I decided not to do that, but I kind of had a vague sense. But I never thought about running for Congress. But I was like, we need to just do crazy stuff right now. I'm not allowed to swear. We need to just do crazy stuff because this is a crazy time. So I was like, let's do this together. I'm doing this. And I just decided. I was traveling. I was up in Queens. I filed my paperwork in Queens. I went to DC. I left the country. But the whole time I've just been working with my people on the ground. Mm-hmm. And we've just been getting this campaign going. So that was not 2 minutes, but that's where we are.
Excellent. Well, let's I just want to remind everyone, thank everyone for being here. Make sure y'all tapping that screen. Make sure you share this out. The best way to share this out is to hold down the host box. When you hold down the host box, a bunch of names are going to come up. Just hit send, and it'll go out. But we are going to get going now, and make sure y'all gifting Mir and OVC, and let's go. So my first icebreaker question: if you could do one extreme thing, what would you do?
You mean like in life
Like
or in
like a bungee jump or skydive, or you know, flip on the BMX bike 25,000 times?
I mean, I think skydiving sounds pretty great. I would like to fly.
You would like to fly? I'm with you.
Like
I'm
to
with you on that. I
Yeah.
could definitely see
All right, well,
myself flying.
let's do that. Let's do that. After we win this election, we'll get in touch. We'll go skydiving. Let's do it.
I live in the DC area now, and I told the folks at OVC,
Okay.
I said when the 120th congressional class is being sworn in, I'm going in because I know I'm going to see some folks up there that I talk to. Mir's going to be one of them. I'll be like,
All
Mir,
right.
I see you,
Okay,
boy.
well, let's do it. And if that, when we get to that day, let's go. Let's go. We'll skydive somewhere. I don't know
We'll
where.
skydive somewhere. Excellent, excellent. Well, Mir, the way we're going to do this is I have about 6 topics to go through. We're going to get through as many as we can. About 2 questions each topic. And then I have 2 what we call rapid fire questions, 2 sets. And that's just quick yes or no answers, or a one word answer. And then we just gonna roll it on out with letting everybody know how they can support you. Okay. All right. So first topic is economic development. Now, statewide in North Carolina, economic reports show billions have been invested in rural communities. How would you make sure that small towns in North Carolina's 10th district aren't left behind compared to the larger cities, that they get the funding that was meant for them?
Okay, so you're talking about the balance of distribution of federal resources
Correct.
between larger cities and smaller towns,
Correct.
and how I would deal with that in
Yes.
my district.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so my district, like I said, is a new district, right? And it's composed of 5 counties, and and the population mass is where I live, Forsyth County, Winston-Salem. So a part of it is this urban area. I mean, not a major cosmopolitan area, but it's Winston-Salem, North Carolina, similar
It
to
is.
Greensboro.
Right.
And then we have we have Hickory, we have Statesville. Those are the kind of smaller cities in some of the different nearby counties. There's 5 counties, like I said, and then it goes down kind of into the western suburbs of Charlotte. And some of these areas are more rural, right? And some of these are more kind of mountain regions. Some of these are more, kind of agricultural. But I mean, a lot of it is sort of what we might call suburbs, exurbs,
Okay.
Small city, right? So, I mean, to me, what we need to do is really take the entire district seriously, right? Not just thinking about where's that donor money coming from, but like I'm running for office to change how government works, right? I mean, and actually, the House of Representatives doesn't govern at all. They only have 2 years, and all they're doing is fundraising. They're not governing. They're not governing. So what I'm really interested in is building different new networks of communication and that's going to have to be through local organizations, through people on the ground, through social media, right? Of really bringing people from District 10 with me to Washington in various ways, right? And, because of all this virtual stuff we can do, we can be in touch with each other. Like any House of Representatives member is absent from their district most of the time. But we don't have to be as absent if we use these type of things like this, virtual town halls, regular conversations that are centered in these local communities, and sort of these relationships will have to be built over time, obviously. But, I'm very committed to really trying to listen to people across the district. I have all kinds of policy ideas, but I'm actually not as invested in the policies that I currently imagine as I am in working with people across the district to really listen to their evolving issues, and how do we shape policies
Yes.
that really work for people across the district. So if that means broadband internet, in rural areas, right?
Yeah.
That's not electric vehicles for people in
Right.
rural areas because the roads don't work and there are no charging stations, right? So how do
Right.
we know that? We talk to people in these areas, right? And so some of that is just relationship building over time. Certainly there'll be a push, both before the primary and up into the next, to the November election of trying to get to know people. But I really want to be doing that in a way that builds structures of communication that then continue. And so when we think about how resources are unevenly distributed, well, that's because people are only listening to their donors, and their donors are generally in certain areas where they have like certain powerful people in those more rural or suburban or exurban areas, and that's who they're listening to. And that's exactly what I don't want to do. And my hope is in building a campaign which is, small dollar donors and spread out, or, sort of different kinds of ways of doing this that's just not beholden to corporate lobbyists, then I will hopefully have the time and space to listen to people. And then in working together with the squad and progressive members of Congress, and I hope that we're going to see a blue wave and that we're going to see that shift, that we can actually do some things. And among those things is going to be really being thoughtful about how those resources are distributed across different kinds of areas.
Now you said you have some policies. Let's hear maybe about one of them where we are talking about when companies receive like incentives. A lot of the times they will give a corporation or company an incentive if they hire a certain type of worker. What accountability measures should be in place to protect taxpayers and the workers?
I'm sorry, you mean like labor protections, or are you talking about
Yes.
like some version of affirmative action that is now
Well,
destroyed?
we'll kind of like, okay, so like I said, sometimes we'll give a corporation an incentive if they are hiring people in their area, in the Winston-Salem area. We say, well, look, you could build this business here if 80% of your employees are people from Winston-Salem. But with that, some people they don't think businesses should get incentives. So how do we balance that?
I mean, they have so many tricks. They're like, we're going to give you jobs. All you have to do is, first of all, let us pay those workers whatever we want, which, at this point, one of my big points is we need to raise the minimum wage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let us do whatever we want, right? I'm absolutely opposed to buying corporate investment. Anytime you do anything like that, it's just a losing game. It's just a losing game. You are not going to win, right? You're just not going to win. Well, you are going to win. The workers are not going to win. The people in the area are not going to win. That's just not the way it's going to happen. I mean, one of the reasons I decided not to run for municipal office is because through tenant organizing work, I've seen how the city operates. And it is developers, and it is those politicians, the mayor has been in for, over 25 years, in bed with those developers. He's just giving money to developers to do things so that they can make more money, all of which only produces gentrification, none of which is, helping with any of the crises, the affordability crises, the housing crisis, the various kinds of crises that come from our horrible working conditions that result in us not having unions, right? All of it is intertwined. So no, I mean, the way that, and again, this can't just be me. This has to be me and a bunch of other politicians deciding to govern differently and doing that together. It won't work if it's just me, right? But I mean, I'm already working with, we have enough progressive people in Congress that if we really we have to speak to those other Democrats, and we have to say, what you are doing isn't working. It's not working. Your neoliberal policies have not been working. You are not governing. People don't like what you're doing. People don't like it. This is why, to me, running openly as a progressive is a more viable way to go than being mealy-mouthed, having no vision, and compromising with corporate interests, bending to corporate interests. It hasn't been working. It would be different if it was working. It would be different, but it's not. It hasn't been working. Right? So to me, and when people say reaching across the aisle, it's not that. Most people in this country are not happy with either the Democratic or the Republican Party. They're not. They're not happy with either party. So what we need to do is give people a way to get out of the tribalism that keeps them feeling like they're attached to one party or the other, but also the parties take that loyalty for granted, right? So, I mean, I actually think people should unaffiliate before the primaries. Don't promise them your vote. Make them show you what they're going to do. I
Okay.
think we can speak with Republicans who are not invested in the MAGA program, and most people are not, and say, hey, the economic policies that we are offering, the $20 an hour, the housing stuff, the thinking about workers and not corporations. No one likes billionaires. No one thinks there should be billionaires except billionaires. I mean, you think you're going to be a billionaire. Okay.
I'm gonna be a
These are
billionaire.
all the ways that we talk to a broader group of voters, right? So it's saying we are not in this to make life better for corporations who are not people, by the way, and they should not be acting as people, and they should not be giving money to politics as people. No, we are in this for people, workers. And when we think about, let's say, creating a more progressive tax system, right? Not just giving that money to corporations, not bailing out the banks. When we think about creating a truly progressive tax system, looking back, what were we doing in the 70s? That was much better, right? But we need to talk to people about it in ways that get out of the tribal identity and the buzzwords. And we need to say, like, how do we make sure that you who work so hard get what you deserve? You're not being given anything. It's not a handout. It's not a gift. No, the corporations are being given gifts and handouts, right?
Right.
So
So I mean, you mentioned that um, you noticed that how the state politics are working within, or the city, the gov, is working within in North Carolina. But you didn't feel like that's where you needed to have the biggest impact. You said you didn't want to run on a local or state level because you said the mayor is already in the pockets. Is that, or somebody's already in the mayor's
yeah,
pockets or something? So wouldn't you say that
I mean,
that would have
yeah.
been your biggest impact?
I mean, so this is a really interesting conversation, right? Which I've had with people over the years. I mean, it's not a stare, right? So it's not like you go from dog catcher to city council to head of city council to county council to head of county council to state to country. These are different issue sets, right? These are people who
Right.
are working in different issue areas. So to me, I mean, look, the mayor and the city council, they're mostly Democratic. It's a city. It's blue. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. They do what every other city council does everywhere that's not, pulling in a progressive direction, and even that they're under tremendous pressure. This is just what politics is. It is just about money. That's just what it is at every level.
Yeah.
The gerrymandering of our state system is so intense that if anyone who's followed this story, at a surgical level, that's how intense the racism of our gerrymandering is, at a surgical level of precision. Did I want to go and be in that state house? Absolutely not.
Yes.
I did not. Absolutely not. No, no,
Yes.
no. Now, I'm not saying the federal government is some great
That's where
place
you
to
go. That's
be,
where you go
but
in and turn the tables over.
okay, well, look, it sounds like maybe you want to come back to Greensboro and run for the state house. That's what I am hearing. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing.
That's what you hear.
But it's partially, Melanie, I'm very interested in international politics. I'm a Latin American historian.
Okay.
I spend a lot of time out of the country. I have a lot of connections internationally. And to me, what I have to bring from all of that is our international visions about what we can do to fight this moment of fascism. Because our imagination is so limited, right? People think a two-party system is normal. It's absolutely not. The world, people don't have two-party systems.
Right.
They don't have two-party systems. People don't realize 30, people know this on this call, 33 out of the, 34 biggest economies, they all have public healthcare systems.
Yep.
Our country is an outlier internationally, right? And so a reason why I'm interested in the national level is because I'm interested in issues of international politics as well as federal issues. And to me, what's so interesting is the opportunity to bring the very local issues of this district in North Carolina and put those in conversation with these international issues. So the issue of immigration is a place where this all comes together, right? Because immigration is intensely local and international. The policies and the way they play out are around local level policing and law enforcement and sheriffs working hand in hand with federal I don't even know what to call them anymore. Right now, these fascist goons, right? Are those local law enforcement officials going to go along? Or are they going to defend the law? Are they going
Right.
to? They're making
So,
different
so in a
choices,
nutshell,
right?
you felt like the federal level was bleeding the most. And that's where you need to be.
Well, also, in
To save
order
our
to put
democracy is
pressure
what I'm saying.
the
Save our
local
democracy.
level, in order to put pressure on the local level, we needed people at the federal level who are being responsive at the local level and communicating all it, because it's not a chain of command. It's not a chain of command. They're operating in different ways. But when I
Right.
talked to that sheriff and he said, right, the feds have a bigger badge than me, then I was like, okay, well, we need to go get that badge and come back and talk to the sheriff with that badge.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it. So I do have a question for you from the chat. And if you do have any questions, you can request up. We'll bring you up on the panel and you can ask him straight out, or you can put them in the chat as someone has just done. And their question is, what does your historical/international experience teach you about how to resist a fascist regime?
I love this question. So first of all, people keep making parallels to Nazis because Nazis are all we know about history because, well, we used to have the History Channel. It was all Nazis, but that's evil, right?
You have to say smotsies. They don't like that word on TikTok.
No,
it's okay.
Did I just get us shut down? Smotsies. I meant smotsies. I didn't say that other word. So in order to think about authoritarianism, we don't have, generally in the US with our poor historical education, we don't have a lot of models for how to think about what's going on. Right? And even the word fascism, we could argue with political scientists and historians, is this fascism? Is it authoritarianism? Is it a corrupted oligarchy? Right? What is this? But we need to look beyond schmatzyism for what is this? Right? What is, I think it's very important. Look at the 1930s. Look at what happened across Europe. Right? And we're seeing the same turn to the hard right across Europe now, across the world now. We have this hard right faction. But that's not the only thing going on around the world, right? So the question is, how have people opposed that and how have they opposed it successfully? So I'm a historian of Latin America, of modern Latin America. I've spent a lot of time in Argentina, researching Argentina. But I've also been able to spend time in Chile, where, I've been talking in some of my, social media stuff about the parallels between Chile and then what happened recently in Venezuela, right? Because the US, we've done a lot of coups in a lot of places in Latin America. We've sponsored a lot of coups. So was what happened recently in Venezuela a coup? Was it something else? But, the US supported the ousting of a democratically elected socialist president in Chile who was in power from 1970 to 1973, and then put into power Pinochet, right, who remained in power for a very long time. And he had an authoritarian government, which, like our current government, was very interested in privatizing everything and did a lot of kidnapping and murdering of innocent people who they disappeared, right? So how did Chile get out of that? Right? Because, and Pinochet continued to really have an iron grip, and people also gave him credit for a lot of economics stuff that really should have been given to him. So how did people get out of it, though? So in the first years, he murdered the left. He murdered the left, right? There was all sorts of really interesting left-wing stuff going on that had been flourishing in a democratic way, a non-authoritarian left that was flourishing for those 3 years in the early 70s under Allende. People came from all over the world to see what was happening. They were like, oh, this isn't Cuba. This isn't the Soviet Union. This isn't China. This is... People are like having long lunches and they're drinking wine and they're doing this socialist experiment. Now, the US did a bunch of stuff to crush that. Inflation was horrible. There were bread lines. In any case. So how did people get out of the dictatorship under Pinochet after decades, right? And, some of it was, there was a turn of international support to some degree when they murdered some people in the US, right? You don't murder people here, you murder people in your own country. But it was, people within the country finding ways, right? So in Argentina, for example, they had a dictatorship at the same time. You may have heard about the Madres movement, where mothers looking for their children who had been murdered, who'd been disappeared, started going around looking for them, and they started protesting in the public squares. Protest was illegal. Gathering was illegal, right? So all this, when everything's illegal, what do you do? How do you stand up, right? And we're not there yet. So we need to use everything we have. We need to use our freedom of the press now before it's gone completely. We need to use our right to gather. All of this stuff we cannot take for granted. We cannot take it for granted because we think it's hard now. It will be much harder when we cannot gather in public. We need to gather in public while we can gather in public. Okay, so in Argentina, people started gathering in public as mothers because they could say, well, this isn't a protest. We're just mothers, and they kind of dressed up. They put like handkerchiefs on their heads. They put on their house coats, right? And they said, we're just mothers looking for our children. And they appealed to the state kind of using the paternalism of the state against it and saying, well, we just want to find our children, right? We're mothers.
Right.
And, that worked. That worked. They created a whole human rights movement. Similar madres, mothers movements exist in many countries around the world, in part inspired by this strategy. It was a non-traditional strategy, right? So one of the things that we can do is look for non-traditional strategies, but those strategies have to appeal and get us there has to be international pressure, right? But they have to also be things that people can say, okay, like, that woman is not a terrorist. She's just a mother looking for her kid.
Right.
So one of the problems we have right now when people are looking at Minneapolis is that they see different things, right? And I think more and more people see this is terrorism of this state. This is not domestic terrorism. But there are still plenty of people in the Democratic Center who say, well, maybe Renee Good shouldn't have been out there that day.
Right.
Maybe Alex Pretty shouldn't have been. Why did he have a gun? Why was he exercising his Second Amendment right, which is his constitutional right, by the way, which other people, they like in other situations. But so how do we protest in ways that don't freak out the vast majority of the population that thinks, I don't know what, maybe don't go outside? Like, what are our options here, right? And you see, we have these traveling monks come through. You all probably have seen the monks on social media. And, I know a lot of people are involved with the monks. It's great. It's beautiful. I think it's a little bit exoticizing and orientalizing the way that people have responded. But people want peace. And so they come out in the cold and they see the monks and there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people watching. And they want peace. That's beautiful. Well, what if there were 100,000 people in the streets when ICE was trying to kidnap innocent people? What if there were just 100,000 people hanging out in the streets? Right? So what are the strategies that we can use? And the problem is we have limited political imagination, because the movements that we had of the 60s and 70s that were in many ways so successful, well, they were undermined with COINTELPRO, right? With all the other ways that their leaders were murdered, their leaders were assassinated. So, they were put in jail. Unions have been systematically destroyed. What structures do we have to organize, right? And we're worse off now after COVID, which isn't over. We're worse off as far as our isolation, our inability to communicate and work together. Social media makes us think that we're connected, but we're not. And it's completely, we can't say words here on TikTok. I don't know if I'm ever going to go on TikTok again. I cannot say.
You see the proofs in the chat? That's all the bad words that TikTok don't like that you're saying. But that's the ridiculousness of it, that you're not really saying anything that's wrong, that don't nobody know. But for some reason, certain words trigger the algorithm. I don't know. I don't get it, but that's where we are in this country, unfortunately. But I was just going to say, to your point, is what we have to do. They've done such a great job at brainwashing people to not see humanity, that we have to do the reverse. We have to make them see humanity again. That's the point blank period of it. Because when you convince everyone that, oh, these are bad people, we got to get them up out of here, you lose the sympathy, and therefore no one will, the masses will not fight for it. But because I don't want to fight for a bad person. Who wants to fight for a bad person? But if you can then appeal to their humanity and make them realize that these are not bad people, they are human beings. They have families, they have loved ones. And unfortunately, it might take the children. Unfortunately. Speaking of children, let's talk about education. Okay? So education coverage often shows tension between parental involvement and government policy. How do you plan to balance parental rights, professional educators, and student needs? Because as we know, there is a fight in the federal level right now about where the Department of Education how much influence it should have in our educational system in the United States. Where do you fall on that?
Look, first of all, they're completely disingenuous. They are not telling the truth when they are having these conversations. When they care about parental involvement versus this versus that, they're not telling the truth. We need a Department of Education to do what the Department of Education has done in the past, one of the things that it's done that many people across the board really wanted to do, which we're now losing, is support for kids with all kinds of abilities and ways of learning. Those IEPs, those 504s, that's all going away if we don't do something about that. And I think that's going to hit some people who don't realize that that's what's happening. It's going to hit them hard. Schools are a place where many families get their social services, get many of their meals, get any mental health treatment, all of that stuff through school. So no, we need the Department of Education to do all of that. All of that.
That's
Generally, North Carolina. Now the student loan situation, that's a whole other issue that we need to talk about and deal with. But the public schools in North Carolina are among the most underfunded in the country. Teacher pay, all of it. So again, we're talking about why not at the state level? No, we need to deal with it at the federal level because the feds can do things. So we just had a whole thing in our city council, where I live, where basically there was a bunch of overspending because they kept spending the money that the feds had given them during COVID and they didn't realize it was gone and they kept spending it. And then they ran out of money and it's been a huge, horrible thing where a ton of people have lost their jobs. Parents are volunteering to help run the schools. But it was not embezzlement. They just needed the money and kept spending it. So let's give them the money. Let's give teachers reasonable pay, right? So even to think about, this is not a war between parents and teachers. This is about what do we all do, whether we have kids or not, for the education that we all need to move forward in the future. And when we talk about parents' rights, right? Often what are we talking about? The right of religious parents to decide that they don't want their children to see the word, am I allowed to say the G word? I don't know. The acronyms. Do they want their kids to know about acronyms? Do they want their kids to know that there are different kind of families?
Right.
Right. So I'm sorry. If you don't want your kids to know that there are different kind of people in the world, keep them inside. If you want to control what they can know and see, also good luck. Your kid has the internet. Good luck. No. Teachers need to be able to teach. Books need to not be banned. The books that they're talking about, they are appropriate for children. And anyone operating in good faith knows that, right? Knows that. So, I think it's just, we're not operating in good faith when we're having these conversations. And we cannot be pitting parents and teachers against each other. That's just not, I'm not going to frame it that way. I'm not comfortable framing it.
Again, if anyone has any questions for Mir, please request up or put them in the chat. I will pose them to him, and we could get his answers on that. So, we know that a lot, not only, like you said, North Carolina has some of the most underfunded schools, but let's talk about the marginalized communities and their education that they are receiving. How can we truly fix this without appearing to, because that's the new thing, is that there's some type of preference being given when really we're just trying to right the wrongs of the past. So how do you fix that? How do you make sure that the inner city children, like I said, children in the marginalized communities are receiving the same fair education, materials, resources that some of the more well-off schools have without appearing to be giving preferential treatment?
Look, the problem underlying all of it is residential segregation and is refusal to recognize the deep just white supremacy and racism in how the places that we live are laid out, right? Because and it's, you see it, I don't know if you ever look at the census data and these racial maps. You can look at these maps and it just shows how segregated our whole country is at every level. You can zoom in and out and you see how segregation works. And you can put those redlining maps on top. I do this with my students, right? Let's look at these layers of history and let's see, why is there a food desert in this part of town? And why does the freeway go here? And which cemeteries got chopped in half? And which ones are are completely destroyed by the elements. Which schools have how much funding and where are they located? So if it's all coming from these local level taxes, right? Yeah, that's the way schools are going to be, right? So people, but are people going to decide on an individual level? Well, I'm going to send my kid to a bad school, right? I mean, those are the people end up individualizing the decisions, right? I mean, I think we should not live in a society with residential segregation. I think we should live in a different way. I think our schools should not be segregated. I mean, there are many, many ways this could be done. I grew up with busing in Seattle, where I mean, I grew up in a what was a black neighborhood and then gentrified, and the buses took us around. But within those schools, there was still segregation at the classroom level because you have the tracking and the gifted programs and the this and the that. Our society is designed to keep us apart from each other. Our society is designed to stop us from getting to know each other. Our society is designed to help us continue to stereotype one another so that we don't create a world in which we can actually have equality, right? So that we can keep telling these stories about those people are criminals and that's why they're poor and that's why they're there and that's why they're not CEOs. So at the level of education, how do we fix the segregation? I mean, it's intertwined with the residential segregation issues, but I think there's a lot of ways that we can go about moving resources and people around schools, except that people don't want to do it because of racism and classism, and we're just stuck, and people don't want to take personal responsibility for that, right? So how do we do that as a society? I mean, that's a longer term thing, but to me, we break that down through getting to know each other. And as an organizer, the thing that I try to do, hope to do, is build coalitions among organizations where those groups may be based in different places, maybe working with different communities, but how can we come together around issues that we care about, right? So maybe if that issue is, we care about our children's well-being, well, maybe that's a place that brings together, people who are concerned about, children not having enough to eat and want to talk about those kinds of programs with people who are concerned about children and their parents, children not going to school because their parents are afraid they're going to get kidnapped in the pickup line, right? Or kids who are not going to school because of that. So how do we bring people together where they might think, well, these issues are not related, and say, well, no, we do actually all care about children's welfare. So we can talk about that from different parts of a city or between urban and rural areas, and those rural areas have different issues, but their schools are not well enough funded either, right? Or their hospitals that are being taken away, right? So to me, it's like, how do we think about these different crises, the education crisis, the housing crisis, the affordability crisis? All of us are facing these crises. It just plays out in different ways, right? And so the more we can name them as crises that affect all of us because the foundational problem is racialized capitalism, the more we can think about common solutions, right? But the enemy can never be that person across town. It's not the person across town's fault that this is happening in your educational. We need to look up. We need to look up.
Yes, absolutely. Let me welcome in Miss Ayana here. She came up to ask a question to you. How are you doing today, Miss Fakir?
Oh, hello, Miss Melanie. I am well. I love your bonnet. Hello, Mir. How are you?
You could get one at
I know where to get the bonnet.
Black Girl Vibes, okay?
I know
You
exactly.
could get a personally
Yes.
made, handmade. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. First of all, there was a question in the chat, and I don't know if you can answer that one really quickly before I rattle off my question. Do you have any local events?
Yes.
Do you have any local events coming up where people in District 10 can meet you in person?
Yeah, I mean, right now, the entire region is snowed under, so there's no events. Everything is
right.
Everything is. So we're going to be launching a really vigorous canvassing campaign in February, and so if there are people in the local area who want to see us, my hope is that you don't just come and see me talk at a town hall. I mean, you can see me talk all the time. Come to my socials. All I do is talk. We want to work with you. So we want to canvas with you. We want you to come and get out the vote with us. We'll find something for you to do, but we're really looking towards a ground campaign, which is about getting to know your neighbors, not just go vote for Mir, but why would you vote in a primary election? What is a primary election? Doing some of that civic education of Melanie, most people, when I was like, hey, I'm running for up there, they assume it's the state level because it seems kind of wild that it would be the federal level, but it's also just not understanding what's the difference between Senate and Congress, state and federal. So we're trying to do a lot of popular education and like working with young people who might be voting for the first time. Well, why might you vote? And when we think about breaking down some of those boundaries, it's often going to be with young people, right? Because they haven't hardened yet into the lives that they're later going to live.
Yeah, that's our platform. We try to educate people on how the governmental system actually works.
Yes, and for the children who will soon be taking their AP government test, like my daughter, Congress is a bicameral house, the House of Representatives and the Senate. So there you go. Anyway, Mir.
So just keep an eye on our socials. We're doing a lot of events. We always promote them. We're going to be doing sort of co-sponsoring. My campaign likes to co-sponsor events with community organizations. So for example, on Friday, tomorrow, there's going to be an event at a Target. There's sort of a nationwide, right? Strike, boycott, walkout, don't do things is happening tomorrow all across the country. In case folks didn't know, you should know. You should try not to do anything. Don't participate in capitalism. This is about stopping ICE in this current crisis with, the massive human rights violations that are going on. We need to show people with our people power, the only thing that we have, our physical power of being in the streets and our economic buying power. A bunch of folks are going to be going to Target because a bunch of people are targeting Target around the country as one of many corporate influences that is lining up with fascism right now. But the idea is also to honor the lives that have been lost, the people who have been murdered, but also to really think about and talk about the people who are not murdered yet, but are currently in detention. So, for example, I have a beloved student who, I'm not going to give a lot of details, but her father is currently in detention a horrible place where he has had the lights on him for 3 days running and is laying on the floor under a plastic bag. He has a medical condition. He hasn't been given his medicine in 6 days. He's barely being given food. The legal system is not equipped to get people out, but we are disappearing and torturing people right now, everywhere. Right. So we need to talk about that. We need to make that visible, and we need to stop it. So we need to go into the streets and we need to stop it. So what are we going to be doing? We're going to be stopping fascism. How are we going to be doing it? Let's figure that out.
Absolutely. Yeah, Miss Ayana, what's your question, ma'am?
Okay, Mir. The State Board of Elections in North Carolina recently decided to not use college campuses as polling places, and they're not going to allow early voting on Sundays. So essentially, they're diluting the right to vote because there are certain areas where the nearest polling place might be 10, 20 miles away. North Carolina is parts of it are very rural. And so if you can't get to a polling place and you can't vote on Sunday, and your only options are Monday through Friday, maybe voting at the Board of Elections or a church that's, they'll allow voting at a church, but not at a college campus. They'll allow it at the Board of Elections, but not on a Sunday. How do you see your role as a potential member of the U.S. House of Representatives in correcting this injustice of the diluting of the right to vote? Through legislation, through overturning of a court case. We're still waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on this Louisiana case. What are you going to do to strengthen the right to vote as a member of the House?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say my mind has been boggled by what I've seen in North Carolina since I moved there. Every single election, I've done poll working and I do a lot of, translation and other things. But, what I've seen in those experiences is all the ways in which that plays out on the ground. So I've literally seen, sometimes we have, sometimes we have a polling booth at the historically black university in Winston-Salem, and sometimes we don't. It's taken away as punishment. And then where are people sent? Well, first of all, it's very confusing when whether or not you have it every year. The communication is very bad. And I've literally watched with my own eyes hundreds of young black voters who were the college students who had their right to vote at their college taken away, get bused somewhere else, and then get told you're getting a provisional ballot because of something about the address is not matching up, because they're college students and maybe they put their dorm room or maybe they put their home address, and because it's whoever gets to decide is the one, the Board of Elections, has the person in there who gets to make the ultimate decision. And when it's a Republican, what they choose is to disenfranchise voters who they think are not going to vote for them. So we see disenfranchisement at every possible level, whether it's you can't park, or you can't get there, or you need to be at work, or look, other countries want, well, it varies. Many other countries want people to vote. And if you want people to vote, you would design the system in a whole different way. You give people the day off. Some countries even they fine people if they don't vote. They fine people. I know someone in Uruguay who doesn't vote for their political reasons, and they pay a fine every year. It's a symbolic fine, but they get the day off, right? They make it, if you really want people to vote, you would set things up differently. So, and that's my foundational thing, is about going to Congress and trying to make a functional system of government. And that starts with a functional democracy, which means let's make it possible for everyone to vote.
There you go.
Okay, and to that end, what would you do? Like what you mentioned, if people had the day off, it would make it easier. So could it be a federal holiday?
Mm-hmm.
But even it being a federal holiday is not, but even if it being, if it's a federal holiday, it's still not going to help people who can't get to the polling place, right? They're limiting where people can vote as, like you said, a punishment for whatever reason. And so maybe some sort of educational program ahead of the primaries, like, we know you're going to have trouble getting to the polls, so this is what we're going to do. It could be ushered in by the representative of that district to say, here are different services that these places provide. They'll drive you to the polling station. Here's an Uber ticket or a Lyft coupon or something. You could do that as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. That's not illegal. That's not unconstitutional. I don't see members of the House or the Senate doing things like this. It's like we're all just sitting around watching these things happen, and people
And
just
saying
are
we
like,
gotta fight.
yeah, or my hands are tied. I don't know what to do. We need more Democrats in office, and everything will be fine. And it's like, no, you have the power. You have power.
I mean, like I said before, I don't know. It's like once you get into a system, right, what happens? You become part of the system, right? And so this is something that, I will have to pay a lot of attention to. Once I'm in the system, there will be many forces that are trying to get me to spend all of my time with corporate donors raising $2 million or more for my next election and not doing any of these creative things, because that's what happens when you get in there, right? So keeping that in mind ahead of time, I'm going to have to build up a lot of systems of accountability for myself so that doesn't happen, because that is absolutely unappealing to me. What I'm interested in doing is taking the things that I know from living in District 10, like people can't vote, right? And thinking about, like you said, I'm going to be working with local organizations at a local level to think about how can we at the federal level support these things like Souls to the Polls, like, the various kinds of local level, get out the vote, education efforts, transportation, making sure that employers are giving people the room, the time, right, during that early voting period, or making sure even people understand what an early voting period is. People don't understand what a primary election is. So it's a combination of education, right, resources that are going into supporting the structural possibility for people to vote. But there's a whole other thing, which is, why would people vote if there's absolutely nothing they want to vote for? I mean, I feel like I have also I consider more centrist who are like, why are you always going in the streets and protesting? People just need to vote. I'm like, vote for what? Vote for what? We're not giving people things to vote for, or politicians who are doing things that they want to have done, or people who listen to them. The Democrats show up in black neighborhoods once every 4 years. Like, vote for what? So that's another piece of it, is we need to give people things that they actually want to vote for. And that means listening to them, building ongoing relationships, working with local organizations, opening up better structures of communication. And otherwise you're just, I don't know, to me it's like, well, you should go vote because I want you to vote for me, not you should vote because let's build a democratic system that is actually representative and actually works.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Miss Ayana. Did that answer your question?
I guess. For the sake of time,
Yeah.
I will
Okay.
accept that answer and move along.
All
But thank
right.
you, Mir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for
Thank
coming up.
you.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, Mir, there was a question posed that are you a professor at Wake Forest or JCS?
Wake Forest University.
Okay.
But I
So
will
Wake
say, I
Forest.
do not speak for Wake Forest University, nor does Wake Forest University speak for me, but that is how I pay my bills.
All right. So we're going to jump into my first rapid fire, okay? And these are going to be kind of politically driven questions. We usually ask people term limits, yes or no, right? But my question to you, based on what you said about that, the representatives go in, they only got 2 years. Do you think the representatives should have more time? Should it be 4 years for reps?
I mean, that's what I've been thinking about. Yes, as I learn more about this, I think like if all you, and it also depends what happens with Citizens United and the other things. You could do something in 2 years if you didn't have to spend all your time fundraising, right? So
Right?
it
Yeah.
depends what happens. I mean, I like the idea of people not just sitting in power forever. So yeah, there have to be term limits.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say maybe everyone is there for 4 years. Maybe that's a perfectly reasonable amount of
Okay.
time, right?
Yeah.
But maybe that's it.
4 years for everybody. Got
Um,
it. And also, are you running as an independent or a Democrat?
no, I want to win, so I registered as a Democrat, but I
Okay.
am aligned with the Democratic Socialists of America. You know, the local chapters endorse me. We're in that process. But no, you vote for me in the Democratic primary.
Okay. Climate change, top priority or long-term plan?
I mean, both. I have, definitely been talking to folks I know who are experts in both thinking about energy policy, energy incentives, bringing back incentives. And this is something that in talking to rural folks and even people who might identify as Republicans, renewable energy is something that people want, that is working for people. The direction that Trump is going with oil and gas doubling down, that's not the way. Like people can make more money doing solar right out on their farms than they can with this other stuff. So but climate change is happening right now. This storm is blanketing the East Coast, is trapping people. No, we have to deal with climate change right now.
Okay.
Absolutely now. Not
E-
later. Now.
electric vehicles or public transit investment? Which should we put more investment into first?
No, I mean I love public transit. Like I just would live on a subway. The challenges have to do with what is the infrastructure. But the infrastructure for both of those, right? When you're talking about a non-dense area, like these rural areas, the electric infrastructure isn't there and it's not going to be there. So I mean I would love to see some trains. Let's really work on our national train system. But the cities in my area, Hickory, Statesville, Winston-Salem, around the triad, like I was stunned when I got here that I couldn't take a train that really worked between Raleigh, Durham, Chapel
And
Hill, and where I
Charlotte.
live in Salem. Like you couldn't do it. I was on a bus, and then I was on a train that was 4 hours late, and then the train was stopped for a freight train, and then I had to get on a van at 3 in the morning, and there was a hole in the floor. Like, okay, trains, yes,
So
trains.
public transit should be
Public
where we
transit. I
invest
mean,
first.
I think this is a both and, right? I mean, in
But
places
we
where we
cannot
sure
do
let's
everything at
invest
the
in
same
let's invest in
time,
that
Mayor. We
infrastructure.
can't. We have to make choices like this.
Okay, public transit.
Okay. Should there be more SCOTUS seats?
Oh, I mean, I don't see another way out of this. We are in a very bad situation. Yes, more SCOTUS seats is the way out for right now. In general, we need to really rethink where our system of checks and balances is at because it is not working. The executive power needs to get dialed back. We cannot have these lifetime SCOTUS appointments. So,
Yes.
but for now, more seats.
Okay. One thing you would change about Congress if you could.
Congress needs to start actually governing. Like,
Okay.
stop fundraising, stop not showing up, go to work, stop
That's
with the
my
performative gestures, go to work.
that's my thing there. I'm like, when I watch C-SPAN and I'm like, where's all the Congress people? How are you having a meeting
No,
with 3 people? What is
no.
this?
Go,
All
go to
right.
work, Listen to your constituents.
Yes. What do you think the American people don't care enough about?
We don't care enough about ourselves. We don't care enough about ourselves to make this system something else. We are the wealthiest country on earth. Why are we living like this? Why are we handing all of our money to billionaires? And why are we choosing to allow fascism to become increasingly violent, such that the only way out of this is going to be a bloodbath? Why are we waiting for it to come to our own front doors?
Absolutely. Last question. If your campaign had a theme song, who is performing it?
Well, we have a theme song that is Miss Nina Simone, and it's feeling good. I mean, I've heard a lot of other renditions of it, but it's if I just get to say whatever I want, it's her performing it.
Okay. That's right. I mean, who else? I mean, yes, have Miss Nina Simone. You know how I feel. Yes. All right. So I'm gonna remind everyone, if you have any questions for Mir, you can request up and come up to the panel, or you can put your questions in the chat. We're gonna touch on healthcare really quickly. Veterans is one of our favorite topics around here, as a lot of the OVC members have family members or themselves in the are or was in the military. So we have to strengthen our military, our veteran care across the board, whether it's making sure that they automatically qualify for federal assistance, or that they are guaranteed housing, that their VA centers actually look like state-of-the-art facilities.
Mm-hmm.
What would you go into Congress to push to make sure the veterans are being taken care of?
Look, we've had the largest defense budget in the history of the universe forever, right? And we're misappropriating that. So all that money goes to making new fancy guns, and then other new fancy guns, and not where it needs to go, which is the people who have actually risked their lives for this country having a lifetime of the care that they fought for, even just at a basic level. You know, I mean, let's just take all the money from ICE, from Border Patrol, this bloated, the budget, I don't know if folks understand, this is bigger than the defense budget. This is a mind-boggling amount of money that they're using to build their violent forces up. And also, I'm like, what are they going to do with those people when they retire? Are they going to treat them the way they treat veterans? Probably, right? I mean, what is going to happen? What is going to happen with all these people? So no, all of these resources need to be moved around. Stop occupying other countries. Stop with the unnecessary wars. He promised no wars, and then he's just starting wars all over the country with no exit plan. So let's take all that money and let's use it. Yeah, like you said, let's build state-of-the-art VA centers. Let's make sure people actually have the mental health care that they need, all the things that they were promised they would get out of the VA. Yeah.
Thank you. So, and we're going to jump to the environment infrastructure, right? Somebody's in the office cleaning right now. But you talked about a little bit about broadband and making sure that they have what they need across North Carolina. And we know that a lot of rural areas do not have the proper infrastructure for the type of broadband we need. Now, at least this administration, but I'm sure any administration from here on out will have to invest in the broadband if they're really going to push this AI, right? Or we know computers are our future. So what can Congress do to make sure that we are putting in responsible legislation and regulations for not only broadband, but what is being put out there, how the computers are being used?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. First of all, I am categorically against AI, and the way that it's being sold is a misrepresentation of what it actually is. the environmental impact, profoundly destructive. Every time you ask ChatGPT a question, that's a bottle of water, right? The resources it is sucking up for things that we do not need. The way AI is currently being set up to take away interesting creative jobs, to help continue to hollow out the middle class. Like, I teach people how to read and write. That's irrelevant now, right? Or people I know who do graphic design and arts, and these are ways you could kind of make money doing arts. Like, why would we have robots regurgitate mediocre slop instead of us doing interesting creative jobs? I know it's much more than that, but we need to regulate AI. Look to Europe. Europe regulates data privacy. We need to regulate data privacy. We need to stop handing over. I mean, the way the federal government is working with these tech companies, it's horrifying. It is horrifying. And we knew that from the minute we saw all those tech oligarchs sitting with him right on that inauguration stage. So, no, absolutely limits on AI and all of this tech. Why is this happening with TikTok right now? None of this should be happening. These systems should be to make our lives better, not to surveil and monitor us, right? Not to suck all the natural resources out. And so we need to shift that. The government attention needs to go to regulating those systems so that they don't overly surveil people and so they don't extract people's data. And as far as building up infrastructure, I mean, the Biden stuff, those were good programs. They need to be expanded. They need to happen, right? We can build broadband internet that this entire country can have. That is well within our economic and structural capabilities.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna now jump right into, because like I said, we're gonna try to get through these real quick. Let's talk about the justice system. Okay, so we are, the numbers are coming down on the amount of people being incarcerated. However, the amount of prisons being built are increasing. So if our country truly has a fight on crime, why would you build more facilities that are to house criminals if we're trying to decrease criminals? How do we nip that in the bud? What can Congress do to make sure that we actually have a reforming system and not just a penalty system?
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, back in 2020, when all the bored white people went on the streets and realized maybe racism was something, and then we're like, this, that, do the other thing, and then we just all forgot about it, right? Like, what has happened since then, right? And the problem has been laid at the foot of BLM or defund the police, as though that's all too radical. I think we need to be careful with these terms. Defund, abolish the carceral system. Like, these words have all taken on these meanings where people think they know what is being talked about. There's no way to make these things real, right? So, I mean, to me, this current moment of fascist violence around immigration is built upon the same structural foundation, right, of the prison industrial complex, which is itself, as a historian, I'll say, built upon the foundation of slave catching, right? So these layers all continue to be there, right? So my student's father I just talked about, he was in a jail in the Deep South in a 4x4 cell for 3 days with 12 other men who were there for criminal reasons. Now, some drug offenses. That jail cell was in itself a violation of human rights, which was not designed for him as an immigrant. He just got stuck in there. It was designed and maintained for Black men. That's who it was for, right? And it was that way 3 months prior and 3 years prior and 3 decades prior, right? So, I mean, the whole system, the private prison system, all of it, I mean, it all needs to get redone from the ground up. We need to think about issues of drugs and mental health as health issues. When we move to a public option for healthcare, all of that stuff needs to be put together. I mean, we need to stop unevenly criminalizing behavior, right? I mean, our president has 34 felonies. Like, what is crime? What is crime? What is crime? What is crime, right? So generally when we think about these questions of security, I mean, we're talking about different things, but, you know, we're talking about situations where people are poor and then they do things, right, to try to make a living. And are those things shoplifting? Are those things dealing drugs? Are those things, what do you do when you need to feed your kids, right?
Right.
And all of this to me these are just outcomes of capitalism. Very few people are pathologically drawn to prey upon one another. And of the people who are drawn to pathologically prey on one another, most of them
Yes.
are upstairs. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I mean, if we work on poverty, and I think we go back to the war on poverty, not the war on drugs. We go back to, I mean, we have people who are still running, William Barber from North Carolina. We're still running the Poor People's Campaign. So to me, if we're actually concerned about what we're calling crime, we need to be concerned about poverty, right?
Yes.
We need to be concerned about poverty. But if we think about also security, different communities also are policed very differently. And we need to think about actual community-based mental health oriented infrastructure. We need to think about mediation when people have conflicts, all the things that people have worked out on the ground when they've managed to mediate conflicts between gangs. How do they do that? Let's learn from that. If what you really want to do is protect people from violence, we have ways. We have people doing it. And that way is absolutely never going to be a punishing system. Like, punishment doesn't work. It doesn't work. We know that. It doesn't
Right.
work.
Right. So yeah, we have to, like I said, we have to come up with something that maybe like a state can only have 3 prisons total. I don't know. Like put
And
the
they're not,
money,
and they're
put
not
the money
private. But
into
we're not, I mean,
they have to put the money into the programs to keep people from going in there like that.
I mean, we need to stop making money off of putting people in cages.
Yeah.
Foundationally, we need to stop incentivizing versions of enslaved labor.
Yep.
We're incentivizing all of that. So if we stopped incentivizing any of that, and we were like, there's no way to make money off of putting people in cages, there's just no way to make money off of it,
Yes.
that would shift everything,
That would
right? So
shift
let's
everything.
start with that. Let's start with that. No
Excellent.
making money off of incarcerating people.
No more for-profit prison. I mean, the president went and said we could no more cash bails. Then we gonna go in and say no more prisons for profit. Done. Excellent. High five on that. All right. So we're gonna do my fun rapid fire questions before we get up out of here. These are, you have to make a choice. Okay. You have to make a choice. I want to hear both. You have to make a choice.
Okay. Hear you. I managed to
Glamping
make
or
it-
camping?
Oh, glamping, definitely. I'm way too old.
Sports car or pickup truck?
I'm really not a car person. Okay, I have to pick one. Oh, geez. Pickup truck, it's more practical.
Agreed. Burgers or tacos?
Tacos.
Okay. Wine or beer?
Mexico is the best food. Okay, I'm gonna get into a fight, but Mexico, all of its different regions, best food in the world. Tacos, not my favorite of all the choices, but yes, over a burger.
Okay. Wine or beer?
I don't drink.
Okay.
Do I still have to pick one?
So neither one. No, you can say neither on that. Would you
Okay.
rather the book or the movie?
I'm a big reader.
Okay. Would you rather success or
It's
happiness?
always better. It's always better. Sorry, go ahead.
He said the book is always better, y'all.
Yeah.
Would you rather success or happiness?
I don't know what success is if it's not happiness.
Good answer.
Happiness.
Good answer. Would you rather a time machine or a magic wand?
I mean, I'm a historian, so I'll go with the time machine.
Okay, good. Me too. I probably would. A lot of people just want to make it all better. I want to go back and learn it and figure it out and change it.
No, because I just think the magic wand isn't good enough, because if we don't do it together, we're just going to undo it. So you're just going to be magic wand. I don't believe in controlling people like that. I don't believe in controlling reality. We have to do it together. No, I want to go back and learn. You can't touch anything with that time machine, right? Because then you screw everything up with the butterfly effect.
Exactly. Android or iPhone?
I don't have loyalty to corporations. I use an iPhone because it makes my girlfriend less mad at me, because I can message her in like multiple.
Exactly. Well, that's a lot of people reason for iPhones. They got the FaceTime thing, and yeah, we can talk right away. Wolfpack or Tar Heels?
I I'm not a sports person, so I can't even answer a sports question. It's the same as the alcohol one.
What? You got to
I
pick. You
can't
in North
answer it.
Carolina. You got to pick one of them. Okay. You will be in a
Yeah.
bar fight if you don't pick one of them.
I can't.
Go Tar
Which-
Heels. Go Tar
Okay,
Heels.
Tar Heels. Okay, Tar Heels.
Charlotte or Raleigh? Which should be the real capital?
Huh. I don't want to get into any fights. Charlotte to me is like a banking capital, and then to me, because Raleigh's been the capital, like it has that different kinds of cultural institutions also around it with the universities. I mean, yeah, I don't see a reason to move to Charlotte, but I like Charlotte. It's a whole different thing. Incredible, also vibrant immigrant community life there. So, I mean, if what we're going to do is like, let's say we kick ICE out of Charlotte and instead of the ICE headquarters, we put a capital there, I would be good with that.
Okay. I think it should stay in Raleigh too, but that was that. Okay. So that was good on that. Now let's like I said, wrap this up. I'm gonna ask you a few closing questions, a couple of closing questions. If elected, what is the first major issue you want to tackle for North Carolina, and how would your leadership style ensure that the voices of everyday residents, not lobbyists, not insiders, which we know you don't have nothing to do with, guide your decisions as a U.S. representative for North Carolina District 10?
I mean, I've signed a lot of pledges to do a bunch of things on day one, like I'll impeach on day one, I'll hold people accountable on day one. I'll join with folks to do all those things on day one. The thing that I came into this campaign to really build out, though, is we'll see where we are with the fascism on day one, but we need to stop this violence. We need to stop the violence. So again, I don't know where we're going to be with it in January, right? But so wherever we are with it, though, that's the first thing that I'm going to do, and that's going to be working with politicians at every level, because it has to be at the federal level that we stop the federal violence, right? But it's also going to be working with local folks on the ground to really think about, okay, but it has caused so much devastation on the ground, right? So it's like all the ways in which people who were already living on the edge can't go to work, their small businesses that they work their whole lives to build are falling apart. People aren't going to school. So that local level rebuilding and healing and all that stuff, that's very local, and that's with local organizations. While at the federal level, right, we stop. Yeah. We cut it.
All right. Well, you got Miss Jen Wiles in the comments, so she's going to be your local contact. We're going to get her into the North Carolina House, and you'll be in the federal House, and we're going to get North Carolina together, right? All right.
Well, unfortunately, she's not in my district, but I'll work with anyone anywhere. So
that's right.
I'm very excited to work with her.
That's irrelevant. Lines don't mean anything, okay?
I'm with no borders.
What sets you apart from the other candidates running in your primary, and how can people support you in this campaign?
Yeah, look, I mean, I make it a point, like I keep saying about looking up. My opponent in this campaign is named Pat Harrigan. That's his name. The other Democrats are not my opponents. We are offering different things. I am offering my background as a community organizer, as a history professor, right, and as somebody who is not only deeply committed to making change, but everywhere I've always gone in my life, I go, I figure out how to work with people, and I make change. And that is what I'm here to do. And it is very personal for me, because as a T person, somebody who teaches things that they are trying to make illegal, I don't know what future there's going to be for me in this country if I don't fight this with everything that I have. So I'm coming at this from a position of wondering with my friends who are having their IDs taken away, who are wondering if their door is going to get broken down. We are fighting for our lives. So for me, it's, am I going to leave the country? Am I going to be able to do my job? Am I going to have healthcare in a year? Right, so I'm coming from a survival place that I don't know if everyone in the race is coming from, right? And that's no shade on anyone. That's just, you might not want someone who's coming from that place, but that is the level in which I am working on this campaign so many hours a day with a huge team of people in Winston, in the area, in DC, and internationally, because we are desperate to make change, and we are desperate to do it with other people around the country, and there are people around the world who are going to help us do it. Right. Yeah. So, that's the difference. Is I'm working actually at an international level with folks on the left in other countries who are helping us envision what can we bring, how can we do this differently. So it is the international in many ways which sets me apart, as well as I do deep community organizing. That's what I do. So it's not, there's no pose of progressivism here. I don't need to, I helped like found and build our DSA chapter in the area, and even so I had to go through their whole super elaborate endorsement process. Like that's just, there's no pose here on that stuff. It's like, but do you want this? Well, that's up to you, voter.
Right.
And voter, if you would like to get involved, my website, www.mirforcongress.com. We do need your money. We would also like your time. We would like you to get involved. And, you know, we do all sorts of stuff on the socials. And, you know, we'd love to also, if you have your own organization or something like that, things, you know, we love to talk. So we'll show up and we'll talk. We love having conversations about this stuff, and we really love bringing people together. So especially, you know, if you're somewhere across District 10 and you want to get together and figure out ways that we can get to know each other, that's really what me and folks I'm organizing with want to do. But also we love meeting with folks around the country, and one of the things we're really trying to do is connect with other people who are running non-traditional campaigns around the country. We need to help each other. We all need to help each other. So let's find new creative ways to help each other with techniques, with how to do social media, but with how do we do this together? Because we need a new way forward, or we need a new way forward if we don't want this to get much, much worse.
Agreed. Mir, I have absolutely enjoyed your passion. I have no doubt that you are going to go into that Capitol and flip some things around. Okay, I have no doubt.
Flipping chairs and tables.
Flipping the change all of this mess. So you, if I was in North Carolina, I don't know. Remind everyone which counties, because like you said, it's been all redistricted.
Yeah.
If you can remember, which counties are District 10?
Yeah, this is my test. So it's most of Forsyth County and most of Winston-Salem, and then it's Yadkin, Iredell, Catawba, Lincoln. I think I didn't miss any.
Let me make sure, like, because I have it too. I have Catawba, Iredell, Lincoln, Yadkin, and Forsyth.
Yeah, Yadkin and Forsyth. Yeah.
Yes, you got it. Perfect. So if you are in any of those districts, look out for Mir on your ballot. Go to his page, research more if you need to. Like I said, if I was in District 10, he would have my vote. I truly thank you. Is there any last words you would like to say to OVC, to the audience, as we get out of here?
No, I mean, it's been a joy talking to you. This is super fun. And this was my first real, like, live. And so I assume when I try to hang up, I'll mess this up completely and somehow delete it all. So I hope that everyone saw it, because I'm about to try to blow it up.
Well, we will be uploading it on our YouTube page. So you are welcome to go there and take a little snippet of it and use it for your campaign, if you like. What you also be able to do is we do have a roundtable we do every other Sunday. So we will be having the roundtable on the 1st, and then another one on the 15th. So look in your DMs or your emails, not the DMs, your emails for the invite for the roundtable, because you will be a beautiful voice in the circle of candidates. It's nothing but candidates. I like to say we get the class of 120 of Congress together. So y'all already going to go in there with a plan and knock some things over. So that's my favorite part. But, you know, as much as I enjoyed this town hall, we have more. So if you can come back, or if our audience can come back, let me move this really quickly. Hold on. No, let's move that. Make you bigger. I can't. Hold on. It won't let me. Okay. Anyway, we have Judge Julie. Let me make sure I got that right. Yes, Julie Matthews is coming up next at 9:00. So, like right after you, we going into another one. Perfect. Thank y'all so much. We have another one tonight. And Miss Judy is running for Fort Bend County, Texas. The county clerk. County court. That's a tongue twister. The county court office. So we're not just doing candidates here, y'all. I mean, like Congress. We are making sure we hit all areas of government because it all matters. If we have, as Mir said, it's not chain of command, but it is a chain. If everybody working their job has your best interest at heart, we will be a better country overall.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So y'all come back at 9 to see Judge Julie Matthew and enjoy some more of this town hall. I'm just going to remind everyone who our vote counts is. We are a nonpartisan movement. Uniting Americans from all walks of life to empower voters, support candidates of integrity like Mir, and ensure every voice is heard. Through education, outreach, accountability, and action, we're building a stronger democracy, one informed vote at a time. So make sure you join us in a few, because your vote is your power. Thank you all. Thank you, Mir. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you so much. This is an incredible project, and I'm just honored to be part of it.